Want to play fun games on the Roblox platform? Well, fuck you! It's all asym games!
Whether you like it or not, a lot of them are coming out. Some are inspired by popular franchises, some attempt to create their own unique identity, and others use old medias. But with so many choices popping up almost every month, it can get pretty overwhelming, especially for newer players. So, that raises the question. If you were completely new to the asymmetrical genre, had zero experience, didn't know the mechanics and the metas, or even how these games are supposed to work, then which game should you actually start with first? Which game gives the best first impression? Which one is the easiest to understand? And most importantly, which one is actually fun for beginners without making them want to quit after 2 matches? In today's video, I've picked 4 asymmetrical games as candidates for the most beginner-friendly asym game for new players. Now, the games featured here are well known within the asym community, which are Pillar Chase, Play by Night, Forsaken, and Die of Death. We don't talk about outcome memories. And to make things fair, each game will be judged using 3 different categories: Star Killers, Star Swimmers, and Gameplay Mechanics. And so, let's begin with the first game, which is Pillar Chase, specifically the Recode version, aka the newer version. Well, definitely better gameplay-wise than the legacy version, at least in my opinion, has one of the worst beginner introduction out of any Roblox asymmetrical game I've ever played. Let's start with the Star Killers for this game, which are going to be Rosemary and Vapor. These 2 original characters were also on the Star Killers in the Legacy version, which makes sense, right? They're supposed to introduce new players to how the killer role works. Well, kinda. Vapor mostly works at the same as his Legacy counterpart. He still has a slow run speed, but generous amount of stamina, and he keeps his teleportation ability. But now he also has 2 new abilities, a launch attack and an area trap that punishes survivors who walk through it with massive damage. On paper, this is actually a really good beginner kit. It's easy to understand, but hard to master, which is exactly what you'd want from a Star Killer. Vapor is basically the brute force killer of the game. The problem, however, is that he feels really clunky to play on a lot of maps. And that's pretty bad because your first experience the game should feel smooth enough to hook you into playing more. Then there's Rosemary. And oh boy, Rosemary got an entirely new moveset in Recode. She's no longer just a speed demon. Instead, she's now a weird mix of a trapper, zoner, and a rushdown killer, which already sounds overwhelming for a brand new player. Now let's get to the Star Swimmers. As a new Survivor player, you are basically naked. When you first start the game, you don't have any sort of classes unlocked. The game does try to help you a little bit by highlighting objective locations when you're carrying an item, which teaches the player what they're actually supposed to do besides just surviving. But that assistance only exists when you're new. After playing a while, the highlight disappears completely, meaning you now have to memorize every objective location, required item, and minigames by yourself. Now, to be fair, it's not the worst thing ever, but it really feels like the absolute bare minimum amount of guidance possible for new players. Finally, let's talk about the exclusive game mechanics. There's only one major mechanic unique to this game besides the standard stamina system, and thankfully, it's pretty easy to understand: breakable walls and killer restricted areas. As a killer, you can spot cracked walls around the map and destroy them to create shortcuts or access hidden paths. This mechanic is actually really important because it helps killers cut spurs off and control the map more efficiently. It's simple, intuitive, and honestly one of the better designed beginner mechanics in the game. So overall, Pillar Chase is definitely not the game I'd recommend if you're trying to get into the Roblox asymmetrical games for the first time. Sure, the game looks great and the gameplay itself can be fun once you understand it, but the beginner experience is just lacking compared to other games in the genre. The Star Killers feel oddly designed for beginners. The Solar's guidance system is pretty bare bones, and overall, the game expects new players to learn a little too much on their own.
Compramos carros y camionetas viejas para desarmar.
Now, at the time I'm recording this, Byte by Night is currently under maintenance until the 3 of this month, so some information here might become outdated later on. But for now, let's talk about the game. Byte by Night is basically the new shining star of the Roblox asymmetrical genre. The game gets praised constantly for its visual, atmosphere, and overall polish. But does that also apply to its beginner experience? Let's start with the start killer, or animatronic. The first animatronic you get when starting the game is Springtrap. And honestly, he's a pretty solid start killer. Springtrap is a simple trap rushdown animatronic. His gameplay revolves around placing traps, rushing Sparrow downs with M1 attacks, throwing his X, and then rushing Sparrows down with M1 attacks again. You get the idea. His kit is very straightforward, but there's still room to improve and master him over time. He perfectly fits the easy-to-learn, hard-to-master design philosophy, which is exactly what you want from a beginner killer. Now let's get to the Star Swerver. The Star Swerver class is the customer class, which is basically the survivalist archetype focused on chases. This class has access to Bloxy Cola for speed and stamina boost, alongside Pizza for self-healing. Just like Springtrap, the class is very easy to understand while still rewarding skill play later on. And honestly, this is a really good start for new players. So, at first glance, Byte by Night sounds like the perfect Roblox asymmetrical game for someone with zero experience in the genre, right? Well, not exactly. And that's because of one hidden and unexplained mechanic. Now, besides the normal stamina mechanic, the game also has another hidden stamina-related mechanic specifically for the animatronics called Decreased Stamina Drain, or DSD. Now, how does this single mechanic hurt the beginner experience? Well, it makes the gameplay feel extremely inconsistent for new players. Here's how it works. When an animatronic continuously chases a survivor, their stamina drain slowly decreases over time until it reaches a maximum of 50% reduced stamina drain. This allows killers to eventually outlast survivors in long chases. However, this bonus immediately resets after landing an M1 hit. Now, imagine being a completely new player who has no idea this mechanic even exists. In one match, you feel unstoppable because you're endlessly chasing and out-staminaing every survivor you see. Then in the very next match, it suddenly feels like your animatronic has asthma and can barely run for more than 5 seconds. The mechanic itself isn't necessarily bad, but the problem is that the game barely explains it to new players, which can make the killer experience feel random and confusing when you're first starting out.
I hate the fucking place! Oh fuck you!
I actually made a poll yesterday asking people which asymmetrical game was the most beginner friendly, and somehow 10 of them on my landslide. Okay, I'm sorry to all DoD players out there, but this game is honestly at the same level as PC2 when it comes to new player experience. Now, before all of you skin me alive, let me explain why. Let's get the good out of the way first, which is going to be the start killer. Pursuer is actually pretty good. Anyway, their entire kit is easy to understand and simple to use. While still not being easy to fully master, they're basically just a stealth rushdown killer with balanced stats and straightforward gameplay. And honestly, that's exactly what you want from a starter killer. And with the good out of the way, let's get to the bad for beginner players. So, here's where things start to go downhill. There are no actual star servers in the game. Instead, every match gives you random ability cards that contain 2 different abilities. Some of these cards can even affect your health and stamina stats by increasing or decreasing them. I think you can already see the problem here. This means new players are forced to instantly adapt to a completely different setup every single match, while also trying to understand what the abilities even do in the first place. Now, thankfully you can hover your mouse over the ability icons to get a short explanation of what they do. Now, reading a short description doesn't magically teach you how to properly use the abilities in an actual match. It only gives you basic information and then throws you into the game immediately afterward. And again, before you all attack me in the comments, remember, this is from the perspective of a completely new player, not experienced players who already understand the system. The other major mechanic besides the random store abilities is map hazards. Almost every map has its own special hazard that changes layout during the match. Sometimes the loop gets altered, sometimes parts of the map get destroyed entirely, and while that sounds cool on paper, it's terrible for beginner players trying to learn the game. New players are already struggling to memorize layouts, and now the game is actively changing those layouts mid-match. And honestly, the maps themselves really don't help either. You can criticize maps designed in a lot of asymmetrical games, but Die of Death in particular has some genuinely rough maps for new players, to the point where your first experience with the game can become frustrating really quickly. Man, I can truly never escape this game, can I? You genuinely cannot talk about the Roblox asymmetrical genre without mentioning Forsaken, because this game basically helped popularize the genre into what it is today. So, how good is the beginner experience for the game that practically defined Roblox asym games? Let's start with the Star Killer. The Star Killer is Slasher, a very basic M1 focus killer with a simple but effective kit. There's really no complicated gimmick to him other than the fact that he's one of the fastest killers in the game. His abilities are all melee based and require almost no setup, just press the side button and the ability activates instantly. He's easy to understand, sector to play, and still difficult to fully master, which makes him a really solid Star Killer for beginners. Let's get to the Star Survivors. When you first start the game, you're given 3 free survivors. Scheme, the central character with a melee stun and stealth heal. Noob, the survivalist character who can tank damage using Slate Skin Potion and escape chases using Blocky Cola. Elliot, an easy-to-use healer with strong chase potential thanks to Rush Hour, and probably the best character in the game currently. What's great here is that the game gives you one character from each major class type and lets you freely choose who you want to learn first. And yes, they all follow the same pattern: easy to use, hard to master. This is honestly one of the biggest strengths of Forsaken. It teaches new players the fundamentals of different survivor roles early on, which helps a lot if you're completely unfamiliar with asymmetrical games. And lastly, game exclusive mechanics. There really aren't any complicated mechanics in this game besides the stamina system. However, the game does have one feature that helps beginners a lot: beginner servers. New players can join servers designed specifically for less experienced players, meaning they're more likely to play against people at their own skill level instead of getting instantly destroyed by veterans. Now, granted, the system isn't perfect. You'll still occasionally run into smurfs or hackers in the beginner servers, but most of the time, you're actually playing against our new players, which makes learning the game much less frustrating and way more accessible for beginners. So in conclusion, if I had to rank these Roblox asym games based on how beginner-friendly they are for completely new players, my ranking would be Forsaken, Bye Bye Night, Die of Death, and Killer Chase. Forsaken easily takes the top spot thanks to its simple star characters, role variety, and beginner servers that help ease new players into the game. Bite by Night comes close with its strong start characters and polished presentation, but hidden mechanics like DSD can make the experience inconsistent for beginners. Die of Death has some really interesting ideas, but the random abilities and changing map hazards can overwhelm newer players really quickly. And finally, Pure Chase ends up last mainly because of its rough beginner experience, awkward star killers, and lack of proper guidance for new players when it comes to their map objectives. And so, that is all for today's video. Thank you all for watching, like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you all on my next video. Goodbye!